Thank you for coming to MTG Anonymous, your daily source for random free-to-play decks on MTG Arena. I would appreciate it if you would like, comment, and subscribe whenever you get the chance. Also, feel free to watch any other content that I've produced. I'll see you in the video. Alrighty, welcome to MTG Anonymous. So today, we're just going to cover the 11 cards, the 11 commanders from Throne of Eldraine that we can play in, we can reasonably play in 3DH. Basically, we're just going to read the card and then go over what we can do with them, see if they are even viable for what we want to do. Let's go ahead and get into reading them first. We'll read each one, and then after that, then we will describe what we can do with it. So first off, we have Ayara, First of Lochthwain. It's a legendary creature, Elf Noble for a black, and a black. It's a 2/3. Whenever it or another black creature enters the battlefield in your control, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. And then tap, sacrifice another creature, draw a card. So what is this card wanting to do? Well, obviously, first off, we want to have creatures enter the battlefield. So you're going to want to have a whole bunch of 1/1s or token producers. And then after that, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. So you want to be able to get something from gaining the life or losing the life. There are creatures in black that say when you gain a life, each opponent loses a life, or when an opponent loses a life, you gain a life, so, and vice versa. So you're going to want to put cards like those, and then tap, sacrifice another black creature, draw a card. For that one, you're going to want to have Aristocrats effects, take advantage of that sacrificing a creature and drawing a card, and or you're going to want things that can grab creatures back from your graveyard. So, and then you can play them over again. So that's how we would want to do that. Gatwick the Wizened, for X, a blue, and a blue. You get a 3/3 human wizard. When it enters the battlefield, draw cards, and then whenever you cast a blue spell, tap target non-land permanent an opponent controls. So again, just like Ayara, instead of wanting to play black creatures, you're just going to want to play blue permanents or blue spells. So you're going to want to draw cards slowly as you go along, and then each time you draw or play a blue spell, you tap a creature, or tap a non-land permanent, so you can basically tap all your opponent's creatures and then attack them. Also, you're going to want to have things that boost humans, boost wizards, so that one's probably going to be a little harder to do in 3DH, but I mean, I'm not going to complain about it. It is still a very good card, and it fits into Sir Eleanor, so those two synergize very well together. Grumgully the Generous, for 1 a red and a green. You get a 3/3 Goblin Shaman. Each other non-human creature you control enters the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter on it. So this one, actually, what I would prefer is probably Riot, since you get the +1/+1 counter anyway. You can give the creature with Riot haste, and then you attack. So, and then you can keep doing that over and over again. Also, you can play cheap non-humans, and then as you play them, give them +1/+1 counters, make them big, swing all out with an Alpha Strike, add things that give additional power to each of your creatures, stuff like that. Draw cards based on creatures' toughness or creatures' power. That's what we would like to see there. Linden, the Steadfast Queen, a white, and a white. You get a human noble. It's a 3/3 with vigilance. Whenever a white creature you control attacks, you gain 1 life. So she obviously is going to gain you life. So cards like, I can't think of the name of the artifact, but if you pay 50 life, you get to deal 50 damage to an opponent. So that one would be a very good one in this one, seeing as you just get a whole bunch of white creatures, specifically since white in general can make lots of tokens very fast. You'd want to do that and then attack with them each turn and gain as much life as possible. And then as you gain that life, then you'll be able to kill your opponents with it. You can also use the Johnny's Pride Mate to make that big, because each one of those instances of life gain is separate, so it will get a +1/+1 counter for each attacking creature. Sire Aelin, the Lion's Claw for 3 a white and a white. You get a 4/4 human knight. First strike when it attacks. Other creatures you control get +1/+1 until end of turn. So, again, kind of like Linden, every turn you're going to want to play another white creature. You're going to want to swing with them, and that's basically it. They can pair well together. Probably Linden being the... she should probably be the commander, but Sire Aelin probably can do about the same too, so that's how I feel that should go. Sire Cara the Bold, you get a 3/3 human knight for 3 red and a red. Whenever Sir Cara the Bold or an instant or sorcery spell you control deals damage to a player, exile the top card of your library. You may play that card this turn, and then tap, deal 1 damage to any target. So there are 2 ways you can build her. You could either A, give her Death Touch and destroy creatures your opponents control, and then use your red creatures to attack your opponent each turn, or you can find ways to make lots of mana each turn, deal damage to each of your opponents, and then play the top card of your library. The smartest thing to do would either have top, Sensei's Divining Top, but in 3DH that's not legal, so you'll have to find something else that can do about the same thing, where you can look at the top card of your library and then play it when you deal damage using Sir Cara. Also, you're going to want to not play lands out of your hand if you can help it, so that way when it's time and you deal damage with her, then you can play the land if there's one on top, and if there's not, then you can play a land at your second main phase. So regardless, you're going to play a land somehow. It's just you're going to prefer to be able to do it, so that way you don't lose it to exile. Sire Eleanor the Discerning, for 3 a blue and a blue. You get a star 4 human knight. Her power is equal to the number of cards in your hand. When she enters the battlefield, draw a card, and then spells your opponent cast that target Sire Eleanor cost 2 more to cast. So basically, you just want a whole bunch of cards in your hand. You're going to definitely need Reliquary Tower or the spell book, so that way you don't have a max hand size. Also, you're going to want some equipment, so that way she's able to trample over or not be blocked. So now you can alpha strike your opponent, keep them from being able to do things using counter spells. Now, granted, you don't want to use those out of your hand, since every time you use a counter spell you make her weaker, but effectively she is still very good. And then also spells that target her cost 2 more to cast, so that means that your opponents are tapping out more mana each turn and trying to remove her, and so you don't have as much of a problem getting through. Next, Sire Ferren the Hinge Hammer, for a green and a green. You get a 2/2 human knight. When Sire Ferren the Hinge Hammer attacks, another target attacking creature gets +X/+X until end of turn, where X is Sire Ferren's power. So this one wants to swing tall, but it wants you to swing tall with basically 2 creatures. Preferably you're going to want something with trample, so that way when you give that +X/+X, the trampler can deal damage. Another way to do this is to give Sire Ferren Helm of the Host. Have Helm of the Host make a copy of Sire Ferren, and then you can give that Sire Ferren the +X, or you can give both of them their +X, and then that way it it works very well. Also, depending on how you do the triggers, if you have multiple Sire Ferrens on the battlefield, what you do is you have each one give their power to one of the others, and then have it give its power to something else, and then boom, now you've basically made a monster using just Sire Ferren. So you could probably fill the deck with lots of ramp, and then afterwards give equipment that increases power, increases toughness just so it can survive, so that way you don't have to keep playing it over and over again. But it's only a 2-drop at first, so it's pretty cheap. But you're going to want to be able to do as much damage as possible with this, and then hopefully you can maybe get it to 7 power, so that way you can swing 3 times, or about 11 power, so that way you can swing 2 times. But it's literally up to how you build the deck. You can also use enchantments, use smaller creatures, and then give their power to, or take the power from Sire Ferren and give it to them. So that's how that goes. Sire Conrad the Grim, 3 a black and a black. Legendary creature, human knight. Whenever another creature dies, her creature card is put into a graveyard from anywhere other than the battlefield, or a creature card leaves your graveyard, Sire Conrad the Grim deals 1 damage to each opponent. And then for 1 in a black, each player puts the top card of their library into their graveyard. So this is a mill commander. I know what you're saying, like, for 2 to mill, 1 card of each player's library is not good. However, if you combine Sire Conrad with the Mind Crank, whenever you deal damage to an opponent, each opponent mills a card. So, what'll happen is, I think that opponent. Let's look that up real quick. I can back up. Mind Crank. Yeah, whenever an opponent loses life, that player puts that many cards from on top of their library into their graveyard. So, what'll happen is the 2 will trigger. So let's go back. And of course the back button ain't working. Back. So, when Sire Conrad triggers, deals the 1 damage to each opponent if Mind Crank sees it. Now, each of those opponents will mill 1. Now, if it sees another creature, then it'll deal a damage to each opponent, and then it'll mill 1, and then so on and so forth. So what'll end up happening is it's pretty unlikely, and well, depending on how each opponent builds their deck, it's pretty unlikely that you're going to not hit a creature basically every time. And if you don't, then you have Sir Conrad's ability to be able to do it again. You can force cards into their graveyard, and then hopefully maybe you have a creature, and so it can do like that. Also, you can use aristocrat style, since aristocrats are doing the same thing. You can deal the 1 damage. You'll deal the 1 damage from the aristocrat and also from Sir Conrad. Mind Crank will see that. The first time 1 opponent will mill, and then the second time all of them will mill, so it just gets out of hand. It's a really competitive commander for 3DH. Torbrand, Thane of the Red Fell. For 1, a red, and a red, you get a 2/4 Dwarf Noble. If a red source you control would deal damage to an opponent or a permanent an opponent controls, it deals that much damage plus 2 instead. Oh my goodness, do I hate that card in Standard. But as a commander, it is actually extremely good, because what you can do, you can have as many 1/1s as you can stand. Krenko, the mob boss, can make lots of 1/1 goblins, and then those 1/1 goblins deal 3 damage. So it's actually pretty entertaining. I think it'll do very well, especially depending on how fast you can ramp. But there's lots of artifact ramp that you can use, since red doesn't have very good ramp, so it's pretty easy. Also, a Torbrand deals Torbrand itself would deal 4 damage, or you can give it one of the enchantment or equipments that allows it to tap deal damage, because then you can use that to deal more damage as you go. Yorvo, Lord of Garenbrig, a green, and a green. You get a 0/0, technically, Giant Noble. When it enters the battlefield with 4+1/+1 counters on it. Whenever another green creature enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on Yorvo. Then, if that creature's power is greater than Yorvo's power, put another +1/+1 counter on Yorvo. That's a lot to say, but basically what happens, the creature enters, it gets a +1/+1. A creature enters, it gets a +1/+1. So, what you're going to do with this one is you're going to want to give it trample, which there are plenty of equipment that can give Yorvo trample, and then you're going to want to keep playing small green creatures every turn. Now, granted, this is easily going to be one of the fastest decks, especially if you give it trample, because you can, depending on how early you get Yorvo out, you can fill the deck with 1/1s or 1 cards for 1 green, and then play 3 each turn. Hopefully you have a way to draw cards as you play creatures, which that's very easy. Or you're able to make tokens. And if you are able to make tokens, then each time a token enters, or the green creature enters, it gets +1/+1 to Yarvo. Yarvo swings. If it has trample, it gets through, and then we're able to kill our opponents really quickly. So that's it. Those are the 11 cards that are more than likely legal in 3DH. Now all these cards are less than a ticket, So let's look at Yarvo. Yarvo is 8 cents, so obviously it's going to definitely be legal in 3DH. So that is it. That was just a quick little discussion. If you enjoyed the discussion, you want another one, we can do the last set before this, or we can do this as we go. Also, we can also break down each commander as we go, so that's how we would do that. Anyways, thanks for watching the video. This one was kind of short, but if you would please like, comment, subscribe, that would be amazing. Later.